All right, let's dive into something really out there. We're going to look at a totally fascinating and honestly pretty bizarre analysis of Vietnamese history. It's called System V, and it looks at historical events through a lens that feels like it was pulled straight out of science fiction. I mean, right off the bat, the source hits you with this: a bounded intelligence system, Darkon class entropy. What even is that? It sounds less like a history paper and more like the intro to a space opera. It's confusing, it's dense, and it immediately makes you ask, what on earth is this person talking about? And that's the exact question we're going to answer today. We are going to decode this wild language and see just what kind of picture of history it's trying to paint. So we have to ask, right? Is this a sci-fi story, or is it supposed to be some kind of genuine analytical model? The source really blurs that line, and it's trying to do something super unconventional with the historical record. Yeah, it turns out this isn't just a bunch of random made-up words. It's all part of a specific system the author actually calls Monster Ph.D. The whole idea is to treat a nation's entire history, all 150 plus years of it, like a single complex organism, and then track how it responds to massive world-changing pressure. So to really get what the analysis is saying, we've got to learn the language first. Let's break down the key terms of this monster framework. You can think of this next part as our official decoder ring. Okay, first up, the easy one. Whenever the source says System V, it's just a fancy way of talking about Vietnam as a whole. Its culture, its government, its people, its entire identity across history. Simple enough. Now here's where it starts to get really interesting. This concept of reality level, or RL. The best way to think about it is like a country's power level in a video game. It's not just about military strength or money, it's a combined score for how stable, complex, and just coherent the entire system is. So where does that reality level score come from? Well, it's basically a mix of these four things you see here. You've got structural stability, do the country's institutions actually hold up when things get tough? Then there's adaptive complexity. Can it handle new, unexpected problems? Narrative coherence. Does the national story, the myth of the nation, still make sense to its own people? And finally, external entanglement. How much is it caught up in the affairs of other world powers? This brings us to an absolutely crucial idea: refinement potential. This is all about the system's ability to not just survive chaos, which the source calls entropy, but to actually learn from it and get stronger because of it. It's kind of like a measure of a system's toughness, its ability to level up after a really, really hard battle. All right, Siri class is dismissed. Now for the really cool part. Let's see what happens when you take this completely wild framework and actually apply it to the timeline of Vietnamese history. The source really zeroes in on these key moments. Colonial rule is described as a high-magnitude entropy injection, basically a massive dose of chaos. And then it focuses on three huge turning points: the Geneva Accords in '54, the Tet Offensive in '68, and the Doi Moi economic reforms in '86. And the framework has this incredibly dramatic name for these moments: probability collapse fields, or PCFs. It's just a sci-fi way of saying these are the hinge points, the moments in history where the whole future could have spun off in a totally different direction. And this is where it all starts to click. This is the payoff. Look at how each of those events gets recategorized. The Geneva Accords are called a Darkon-aligned collapse, which just means outside forces were calling the shots. The Tet Offensive is fascinating. It's framed as a narrative collapse, but not for Vietnam. The collapse happened in the minds of their opponents. And finally, Doi Moi is a controlled collapse where the system basically chose to break itself down to build something new and better. Okay, so if you put all these points together, if you were to plot them on a graph, what does the grand historical arc of System V actually look like through this lens? Well, the source actually maps it out for us. And here we get to the most counterintuitive claim of the whole piece. It argues that Vietnam's reality level, its overall strength and coherence, actually went up during colonial rule. The intense pressure forced it to adapt. That level then spiked like crazy during the Cold War and finally stabilized at a new, high level after the Doi Moi reforms. And its refinement potential, remember, that's the ability to learn and get stronger from chaos. It followed almost the exact same path. It apparently peaked during the absolute height of the war and isolation when the pressure was at its absolute maximum. After that, the system learned how to direct that refinement process on its own. So at this point, you're probably thinking, okay, this is a provocative, maybe even an insane way to look at history. But is it real? Is anyone actually proposing this as a serious academic theory? Well, this is where the whole thing takes its final and most important turn. The author totally anticipates that question. And if you dig deep into the disclaimers, you find the real key to this whole piece. And surprise, it's not what it looks like on the surface. The source flat out says it was authored as, and I'm quoting here, mythic infrastructure, cinematic indictment, and sovereign broadcast. I mean, come on. That's not the language of a history textbook, is it? This thing isn't a peer-reviewed paper. It's something else. It's more like a piece of diagnostic art. And here's the crucial point, their main takeaway. The Monster Ph.D. framework isn't meant to be taken as literal factual history. It's a tool for thinking. The author's very clear, this is not a political endorsement of anything. It's a diagnostic tool designed to help you see a really complex system in a completely new light. And all of that leaves us with one final, and I think really fascinating question to chew on. It's not about whether this strange model is right or wrong. It's about something much bigger. How do the models we choose to build, the stories we tell, and the systems we create, how do they fundamentally change the way we see the world around us?